Hi everyone, it's Jerry. I have an instructive game to share with you from 1968. On the white end, Yaacov Bernstein playing against Bobby Fischer. Alright, we have a Sicilian defense. No exchange of the D and C pawns. We're playing the closed system here. Most popular setup for black from this point is with E6, and then knight G to E7, connecting knights. Fischer's setup is with B6, bishop B7, a double-fianchetto. Playing opposite, white's most valuable piece, pound for pound, the light square bishop. An exchange of light square bishops will almost certainly favor Team Black. This is the likely home for the white king. No light square bishops, much more vulnerable white king position. Okay, kingside castles it is, queen d7, bishop e3, and now on this move 9, Fischer plays f5, challenging the duo. In the computer's eyes, knight h6 is considered best, with an eye on the g4 square, and with the idea to play f5 one move later. The knight is now supporting this advance. Black's in a spot to meet this capture with knight recapture. Do know this position right here is already excellent for black. This structure is an adequate one for the black king if you want to go kingside. You got a half open file, and one other square to touch on, this one here, d4. Nice grip over that square. You could definitely see a nice piece jump on that square at some stage. Not so easy for white to play in the center with the d4 in this scenario. Okay, Fischer is a bit quicker, let's say, in this game. f5 straight away. Now from here, white plays within the structure, makes very natural moves, queen d2, rook a to e1, and then a bit of a regrouping shortly thereafter. What I want to touch on before we get there, however, is a couple different ways the central structure can change. We're going to have a look at these two moves. I want to give you a feel for how you can respond in both cases. It's important and very easy to go wrong. So let's first look at this capture. How easy is it to go wrong? Well, if you recapture with the queen, you would already be losing. Knight g5 would be a winning move, with bishop h3 to follow. There's going to be an accident happening on e6. This queen is really short on squares as well. Okay, it would be important to meet this capture with the pawn recapture. And after this play in the center, this is as far as I'm going to take it. This last move is for the moment, a defensive one against queen h5. Maybe a bit later you can claim, hey, it's actually an aggressive move. I'm going to play h4 and go after the king. It calls this position around 0.5. Okay, the other move to have a look at, d4. Knight f6 is considered best. Feel free to check out the PGN in the description if you want to examine that one further. But here's a simpler one that's certainly playable, and a line here that reinforces really this knight h6 idea. So in this case of a capture, we're recapturing once more with the knight. In the case of another capture, now we are okay as black taking with the queen. No bishop h3 in this case to worry about. A playable position ahead to be sure. Okay. In our game, playing within the structure, queen d2, knight f6, king h1. White wants to be in a spot to meet knight g4 with bishop g1. King's getting out of the way. g1 is vacant for the bishop. Queenside castles, opposite sides castles game ahead. Rook a to e1. Small improvements. King b8, slightly healthier. The king on b8, closer to the edge. and the bishop just getting out of the way of this rook. Okay, from here we have capture on e4, pawn takes, and from here, Fischer plays in a materialistic way. Kind of interesting to see him play in this way. Yeah, he goes for the material. This is actually a risky idea. This is one of those don't try this at home type moves. Fischer plays bishop a6 here. He's going after the exchange. Another approach here for black is to play e5. And in the event of a capture, we're recapturing with the pawn, justifying this rook post on d8. Okay, Fischer goes for material. Bishop a6 on this move 14. What are you supposed to do here about this rook? White knows it's going to be tracked down, doesn't even move it to f2 here. Plays the best move. Knight g5 is played in this position. If rook f2 is played, knight g4 would be there, and the miners, the black miners, have all these squares covered. The rook is a goner, one way or the other. Note, bishop h3 is not a move here. Knight takes rook, hits with check. White continues with knight g5. Bishop takes rook, and white recaptures now with the bishop. He has his eye on this diagonal here, the b5 square, placing the knight in a pin. Computer is not a fan of this. This is where we see a significant shift. If you take with the rook, it in fact prefers white here. Even though you're down the exchange, keep in mind, as I pointed out earlier, the fianchetto bishop, one that's near your king position, Fischer has given that fianchetto bishop up. And this guy is on the ideal diagonal, the main diagonal, unopposed bishop. White had a different idea in mind going on this diagonal. It likes this idea from here, playing e5, simply opening up the bishop's eyes. Okay, white does not play in this way. Again, this is a risky approach, what Fischer is doing in this game, going for the material. It's bishop takes f1 in this game. Now there's this idea of a fork. Black gets out of that idea. Bishop b5. And now this is an idea, e5. Black wouldn't be able to recapture with a pawn, or initiate the capture with a pawn, because there would follow queen takes queen, and then bishop takes knight. So black stops e5 by playing e5 himself. F takes e5, gotta take with the rook, take with the pawn, queen exchange, there goes the knight. So it's rook takes e5, bishop takes knight. Why give up this pin? What is the idea? Well, let's see. First of all, the queen recaptures, has some pressure on e5, 3 attackers. Well, the queen's no longer there to watch over f7, so we're not done with the continuation. White's getting the material back. The question to ask yourself here, which rook do I want to maintain? Probably the one that's furthest advanced. No exception in this case. It's rook d to e8. There we are. No more material inbounds. Who stands better, though? It's black. This guy here is isolated pawn, a liability, really. Only 2 sets of minor pieces. This is really the thing I look into in most cases to determine if an isolated pawn is a weakness or a strength. Only 2 sets of minor pieces. I think more often than not, the isolated pawn is a weakness. You start looking at 3 or 4 sets of minor pieces, it starts to maybe be more on the side of a strength. So it's a real sore spot in this case for white. White continues here with queen f4. Queen d3 is considered a little bit better. It defends e4 and has an eye on b5, has an eye on preventing a b5 advance. Okay, queen f4 is played. Why was I drawing some attention to b5? Well, now black can play b5 with the simple idea to deflect a defender of the e4 pawn. And there's not really anything white can really do about this. White's soon going to lose some material. So what's tried in this game is a3. If white tries something else, I don't know, let's say the rook pivots to a different square, preparing to meet b4 with knight here. Instead of capturing the knight on d5, best is to take on e4, followed up with rook e5. And now you're going to get the piece one move later for free. Okay, white's try in this one is with a3, which really doesn't end up stopping b4. b4 still played. Takes. White's try here, bishop d4, making use of the newly created weakness, but there's only one more move with this game. I wonder if you can spot it. Feel free to pause the video. What would you play here as black? Okay, final move, rook f5. Counterattack against the queen, taking advantage of the pinned pawn. After the queen moves, you win the knight. Another winning move would be rook e6 as well. What would not be winning is this capture on c3. This is not a position where you say the two minor pieces outweigh the rook. It's way too open. Many files the rook can potentially make use of. Opened black king position, queen still on board. Simplest is the move played in the game, rook f5. Easier to calculate everything. You're just taking the knight after the queen moves. Now, if this move here was not on your radar, let me give you a tip. Earlier, when the black queen recaptured on c6, I described this move on purpose in a not so efficient way. I said something like the queen's putting pressure on e4. I think it's better to view this capture here as the queen is now pinning the pawn, because that implies that she's also putting pressure on the pawn. Why is it better to maybe think in that way? Well, when it comes time for a pop quiz like this, if that pin term is still swirling around in your mind, maybe you're a bit more drawn to this possibility. Anyhow, what did you think of this one? Feel free, as usual, to leave any feedback to this video in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed it and maybe took a thing or two away. That's all for now. Take care. Bye.